We are going to be 10 billion by 2050. We are going to live on a planet 4 degrees hotter. We are going to have more mouths and less food. We are going to have less land and more pollution. But we crossed oceans and we defeated diseases. But we went to the moon and we blossomed the desert. Because we are innovators. We are farmers. We are makers. We are dreamers. And we are going to gather and discuss, create and inspire minds and souls. Because we are feeding our future.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you very much. I need you all to take out your cell phones because I'm going to go very fast. I'm covering a very complex, deep subject. I have 4 major key points that I want to talk to you about, but because I'm limited on time, I'm going to go very fast through many slides. So if you see one, please take a photo so that you can look at it later. Plus, I have some free gifts for you in the slides that I want you to get digitally later. Earthrise, December 24th, 1968. The Apollo mission, this is one of the first pics of the Earth that comes to the Earth catalog, and it's shown a lot by climate leaders and people who talk about the environment, but I show it to you for another reason. This next picture is the blue marble, and it is the next highly publicized picture of our Earth. And the reason I show you this is because it is without borders, without nations, without cultures, without people. There is no separation for us here. We are all on this ship, our planet Earth, together. So we need to work together. And we need to understand the complex systems of this. Whether you're in America, whether you're in China, whether you're in Italy, everything we do affects other people on other parts of the world. And I call that an overview effect, or the cosmic perspective, which is basically a cognitive shift in awareness that kind of changes our perspective on the planet that we live, a very finite planet. I want you to know that there's only 500 people to date that have seen this live from outer space. Astronauts, people who have went on missions who have seen it live from outer space. Today in our technological age, we have virtual reality, we have airplanes, we have people who come close to seeing this planet, this perspective from Earth, but digitally. The Earth, Venus, and Mars, or Mercury, sorry. What you see is a degree, and we call this the Goldilocks effect. One is too cold, one is too hot, and the Earth is just right, just the right temperature, climate, and atmosphere to produce crops and to sustain life on Earth. This is our thin blue layer that protects us. It's a very thin shell that creates this atmosphere for us to be inhabitable. Anywhere in the universe, we have not found another planet that is suitable for life. And we're still searching. Maybe it will exist. But now that you've seen this overview and this cosmic perspective, the energy trapped by man-made global warming, pollution, is equivalent to 400,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs exploding per day, 365 days per year. I'm sorry for the dramatic effect, but that was just one explosion, the Hiroshima atomic bomb. What I want equivalent to the Hiroshima atomic bomb, but what I want to show you by that, if that was going off 400,000 times a day and we heard that explosion and we saw the effects of a mushroom cloud, I think we would do something about climate change. I think we would live in a different world, but we don't see that. These greenhouse gases that we're emitting and we're creating into our atmosphere, which are all human-caused, they're very silent. And we don't see the effects of them today. We see the effects of them in 10 years. The problem is in 10 years, it's too late. October 13th, 2014, the U.S. Department of Defense came out and talked about adaptation roadmap for climate change. And they said it will likely lead to food, water shortages, and pandemic disease, disputes over refugees and resources, and destruction by natural disasters in regions across the globe. Prime example, the Syrian refugee crisis, okay? Everybody's heard about it. It's only a small percentage of all the climate refugees. It is directly related to climate change, and it's important that you know that NASA predicted through satellite photos well before that they were experiencing a naturally reoccurring drought in the region, and that farmers, infrastructure needed to be aware and adjust. Instead, many years went by and things didn't occur the way they should. Now I want to talk about how the effects of climate change, not all the different facets or aspects, affect different parts of food, water, and energy. Our food supply can be affected by heat, temperatures rising and falling. This is a study done a little bit ago in 2012, which has changed since then, but it's showing deficits and surpluses due to climate change and how different regions' surpluses have been affected. There was a major drought in the Silicon Valley, or not Silicon Valley, the Central Valley of California, which had major impacts in North America that are not accurately reflected here, but it's important to know it affects all of us. How does climate change affect the food supply chain? Pests, fire, water availability, disease. We'll start with heat. And this is just some of them. This is not the full spectrum, not all of the points, but current research indicates that for every day during the growing season that temperatures go above 29 degrees Celsius or 84 Fahrenheit, corn yields decline by 0.7%. By the end of the century, the U.S. corn yields could fall by 1/3 from heat stress alone. A 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit increase, or 1 degree Celsius, in projected mean temperatures was found to decrease wheat yields by nearly 21%. Pests. This is Asia's multi-billion-dollar cassava industry, and it's at risk. One outbreak of an invasive species or a pest is enough to but our results show that the climate change could trigger multiple combined outbreaks across the Southeast Asia, China, and the cassava growing areas of southern India. In a real-world study of CO2 and soybeans, aphids and Japanese beetles were drawn more to plants raised in CO2 conditions. Beetles that fed on high CO2 levels lived longer and laid more eggs. High CO2 levels also lowered plants' natural defenses, making them virtually helpless against plant-eating pests. Disease. Wheat leaf rust. So this is a very, very complex model that you see. It's basically a dynamic model. It shows you the systems that are involved in food, and it's not showing you all of them. And I want you to be aware of how complex this is. Rising concentrations of CO2 are threatening global nutrition levels. Zinc, iron, copper, magnesium, and calcium could be decreased by 5 to 10% in stable crops as CO2 levels rise. And then there's also toxins. Water is a major fact, and global water use is 12% for domestic use, 19% for industrial use, and agriculture is 69%. As temperatures rise, so does water use. People, crops, energy, and industry all use more water. Water scarcity affects more than 40% of the world's population. This is a time to take a picture. This is a gift I'm giving you. It is a digital book. It's in Kindle format, EPUB, PDF, Nook. It's called The Limits to Growth. It was written in 1972 by Dennis Meadows, Donella Meadows, Jorgen Randers, and William Behrens. It's a report done by the Club of Rome and the Volkswagen Foundation, or Stiftung. It is basically the Bible of climate change. But I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Have you ever heard that if we all lived like Americans, we would need 5 planets worth of resources because we're a finite planet? Well, that's kind of something that comes a little bit from this book. But what it is they came together and did a research paper that ended up in a book. And this paper was a dynamic model, systems thinking, where they created the World Computer 1 at MIT Labs and put in all the data. And to break it down, basically they said, how much does one person need in resources to live their full life? And it came out to be that for food, water, air, oxygen, whatever we need to live and survive our full life, we would need about 2.7 hectares of land per person. And then they calculated the population, and they did many other inputs and outputs and feedback loops, and they projected this model out over and over again and said, boy, we don't have enough resources to sustain all the people on Earth. And so this is a great book for you to understand how systems work and why we're running into the problems now. This book was in 1972, 2017 today. Most people don't even know it exists and are still questioning climate change. Our world is made up of many, many systems. This is our planet, which has 5 systems: the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the geosphere, the biosphere, and cryosphere. And if just one of them breaks down, collapses, is destroyed, it affects all the other ones. If one of them becomes sick, we lose the whole system. They all work in harmony. There's not one system that controls them all. They all work organically together, holistically together, to keep us going the way we are. Now humanity has come into the picture and is creating things that's throwing this balanced system off kilter. Our body has 11 systems: muscular, nervous, skeletal, circulatory system. There is no one brain or operation system that controls all of these systems at once. They all work in harmony. They're all holistically functioning together without one telling the other what to do. But if you neglect one, or if you do something to get a disease, or you break a leg, or you do something, it affects the other systems, and they have to work harder or compensate. Sometimes we have disabilities, or we progress to death or other catastrophes if our bodies are not well and our systems aren't functioning all in harmony. And those are systems that I want you to understand that are found in everything in our world: our planet, our body, businesses, nature has systems. And so I want to present to you systems thinking and dynamic modeling with the book that I gave you. And this right here is the fishing industry that was modeled out with feedback loops, inputs, outputs, clouds, and every aspect of ships at sea and in the fishing industry. And then there's numbers and stats put in, and this model is run out with different scenarios. What if this? What if that? Does this biodiversity or sea diversity come into play? How does that affect it in the future? And it's run out in different scenarios, and then at the end it comes out to say, okay, what can we do? How will it look in the future? And this is a picture I would take so that you can get free resources. There's many different types of dynamic modeling that you can use at home. The one on the bottom was used by MIT Sloan to do the UN climate modeling discussions, where you act as a player from China or Italy or America that comes together at a conference to discuss the world, to discuss issues in our world that affect us all. And it uses dynamic modeling and systems thinking. The other two are softwares that are free or you could purchase that help you to understand how we can put systems together and make them flow naturally. The problem is, in our world, the natural systems, our planet and our body, they function without our thought process. They just work. The other systems of our business or agriculture, they need a thought process. We really need to work at them. You've all seen these sustainable development goals. They're very important. They came out about the same time that the Paris Agreement, where the world came together and we agreed on the 1.5 degrees of warming. The Sustainable Development Goals came out before that, and this is what you're used to seeing. But most people don't understand them, especially businesses, and I want to kind of make it clear a little bit more about them. So this is an article from The Guardian. It says more than half of all businesses ignore the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They don't understand them. They don't understand how they can apply them into their businesses. And they see them very different. Well, they're a system. And they're goals and things that we can do to achieve this under 1.5 degrees of warming. This is a different model of the Sustainable Development Goals, done like a cake or a pie. And it's done so in a hierarchical way of the needs of humanity and our planet, the basic fundamentals. For us all, the basic is we need air, water, and food to keep this body of ours functioning. And if you look at the bottom, most important level of this pie, you see our biosphere, which is agriculture, food, and water. It is our system of what we eat. Showing the importance is not in energy, it's not in oil and gas, it's in our basic needs, our agriculture, food and beverages, water, and that is that bottom cake. And that's why this conference and the EAT Forum and many other are so vital to our existence, because we need to understand the foundation of the Sustainable Development Goals, that what they talk about, the UN, it all lies with agriculture and food and beverages. It is the most important factor for climate change, and it affects every human being on Earth. One other aspect that is the most important, especially for businesses to understand, along with the Sustainable Development Goals coming together and agreeing on 1.5 degrees of warming, keeping us under 1.5 degrees of warming, and all the nations coming together to ratify the Paris Agreement, there was also a number, a dollar figure. The Sustainable Development Goal investment goals needed to stay below 1.5 degrees of warming is $90 trillion in 15 years by 2030, when it was agreed upon in 2015. Because it happened at the end of the year 2015 and we came together, that year we were well under $300 billion of good projects, investments, money that was put out there in sustainable developments, into these goals, into projects and things that are going to make our world more sustainable, to keep us under this warming. The next year, I think we were somewhere around 860 billion, still well under $1 trillion. We need to invest. We need to get green bonds. We need to get all sorts of green investments in sustainability of $6 trillion US every single year by 2030. We're way behind. We're more than 12 trillion behind. That's important for businesses to know, because it's not just that's what we need to invest. That's the money that's available to invest. Governments know that. UN knows that. That money is there. You need to make sure you have a project that is sustainable and not greenwashing. This next slide here is very, very important. It's a study done by True Cost and KPMG. It's a little bit old, but it's a 5-year study, and so we run into that a lot of the time. It's, I believe, 7 or 8 industries, airline, automobile, beverages, and it shows the environmental cost of EBITDA. The black line on the left is EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. On the right side is the environmental cost, the total environmental cost of EBITDA. And that is an imbalance. If you look in the middle at food producers where the arrow is, 89% EBITDA and 224% environmental cost of EBITDA. It's an imbalance that is way worse than oil and gas production. And there's many factors that play into that you need to know about that makes it the absolute largest industry or only industry in the world having the major effect on climate change. There's some things that aren't depicted in there that are important to know, that diabetes, health care costs, obesity, overweight, that all affect those statistics that aren't even in there. They're not even shown in there. Those natural capital costs aren't in there at all. We're eating our planet. We're on a finite planet, and we're eating the resources, and we just cannot sustain it. And that's why we need a global food reform. We need a new system and a new model. The agriculture, food, and beverage industry globally is the leading major cause of climate change and human suffering. It is time to bring the entire industry out of the industrial age, or like I like to say, the dark ages that it has been stuck in, and into a new age of resilient sustainability. If you look at how this problem started, industrial age started with agriculture, with farming. It didn't start with producing cars or anything else. It started with food production and agriculture. The EAT form, Stockholm, Sweden, Stockholm Resilience Institute, is a wonderful form. It is the pinnacle of the food industry, or agriculture, food, and beverage, for the reform of the industry. It's like the World Economic Forum for food. It's like the COP, the Conference of the Parties for Food. Finally, we have a voice. It's like seeds and chips on steroids, on drugs. It is the place for who's who and transformation for how our food changes. And it's important that you look at some of these stats, diarrhea disease, or 1.9 billion adults who are overweight, of whom 600 million are obese. All sorts of issue, all tied to food, all tied to the most important, vital thing for our existence. You might recognize some of these top 10 companies. These are the top 10 companies in the food beverage industry in our world, and they own the majority of the brands in our world. I don't know about you. I didn't tell them what to produce. I didn't say, boy, will you produce Coca-Cola for me? Will you produce Pepsi for me? I wasn't part of that decision. I don't know if you were, but when I was a kid, I sure loved it. I loved those sugary, colorful cereals. I love some coffee, and I love chocolate. Mondelez has one of my favorite brands. And so I do buy them, and I like them, but because they taste good. But I want you to be aware 10 big companies are controlling what we're buying, what we have available. Here's some of the future brands of our world, and they are some great companies that are doing meat substitutes. Memphis Meats, Impossible Foods, some great water and fruit drink companies there. These are new innovators and companies that will either be bought by the top 10 or they will create a product that is vegan or plant-based or sustainable for our future, or something that is better for our health that will help. So just to be aware of some leaders. I own a company, it's called ANYA. Stands for Adaptive Nutrition Joint Achievements. Joint Achievements is the most important part because we partner with many people in a systems approach way of doing not only business, our model, but as solving some global issues. We've taken 6 global challenges: energy, health, water, food, disaster resilience, and environment, and we're trying to address them in one complete solution. And the core of that is the water, energy, food nexus. Cost of water, cost of energy, cost of land, and our resources are very, very important. And so we do ambient water harvesting. We don't use natural groundwater or desalinized water. We use ambient water harvesting. We do rainwater harvesting. We recycle our gray water. We treat and recycle our black water and use that as fertilizer. We use solar energy. We have 63 megawatts of solar energy. We have 5 megawatts of wind energy and 5 megawatts of hydrogen power. So we're close to a 75 megawatt facility. And with our food, we use the new innovations that have been around a long time, and some newer innovations that are coming online to extend the shelf life of our products. And we basically have a bigger overlying concept. It's one planet living. It's a dynamic modeled systemic approach. And it's inspired by Cradle to Cradle and the circular economy, who are great partners and friends of ours that have helped us to develop these ways of thinking, a organic cycle or a technical cycle, so that whatever is created in nature or by us flows back into the circle, so that it is something that is not cradle to grave, but it is in a system that continues to flow and we do not waste anything.
Large production facilities CO2 neutral, energy balance equal to net zero, growing vegetables exclusively with rainwater. The green production facility of ANYA GmbH turns current food and beverage production facilities on their head. Our complete concept of an urban green production facility sets new standards worldwide. By combining technology, innovation, renewable energy, and the recycling of resources to a holistic system, it is a truly green system. The sun, wind, and rain are our primary energy sources, along with Tesla power packs as backup. Our energy balance is net zero 365 days a year. Our process uses a complete water cycle management system that resolves the unsustainable water imbalance currently used in the food and beverage industry. We recycle and use our rainwater to 100%, and we access and protect our own natural groundwater because we filter the water with reverse osmosis equipment, and we recycle 100% of our gray water. By using only organic filtered rainwater and automated vertical farming, we have optimal space and power utilization that allows us to grow a portion of our raw materials in-house. Our adaptive nutrition concept is adjustable to the personal circumstances of each individual. All our healthy products are 100% vegan, gluten and lactose-free, GMO-free, contain no added sugar, have no added preservatives or fragrances or flavor enhancers, so they are completely organic, and are very delicious. Our environmentally friendly packaging is completely recyclable. Current food and beverage production facilities have stood long enough on their heads. We place them back on their feet.
Our ANYA Aloha Eco Centers, Aloha stands for the Adaptive Lifestyle of Health and Sustainability, and Eco Center because it is a very dynamic modeled systemic approach. So we address the water, energy, food nexus. We address packaging. We address our energy. Our facility is located just north of Hamburg, Germany. It is a 50-hectare facility, 40-hectare building or production facility with 193 solar panels on the roof from Panasonic. And I told you how many megawatts we generate. We're located right on an exit, and we have a Tesla supercharging station. We also back up our energy to Tesla power packs, and we're looking for future solutions. Tesla's coming out in September with some electronic trucking that we're hoping to integrate into our system to reduce our logistical carbon footprint by using electrical trucking. And it's just a wonderful facility that has every aspect thought out. And I want you to know that everything is open source, and you can have our technology and our wisdom, and we really want you to to do something like this on a smaller scale or bigger scale in your countries, your cities, because it only makes the world a better place. It makes your business more sustainable. It makes your life more better because you are generating profit. You're generating a system that works in harmony together without hurting or damaging the environment. My vision is that we empower billions of people to live an adaptive lifestyle of health and sustainability, that we teach them how to be self-sustaining. This is a big vision. This is a big production facility, but we want people at home in their apartments, in the houses that they live in, to use renewable energy, to do ambient water harvesting, to grow sprouts, to have a vertical garden, to do the things, to be off the grid, to learn how to provide food for themselves. And the reason for me speaking at Smart Food Cities is because the most important thing, the way cities originally were created, is around food. And the technologies and things I'm seeing today is that the food is moved out to a farm or an industrial area, but not in the cities where we live. So when the farms dry up or they're no longer working, all those farmers move to the city looking for help. So if there's no infrastructure or no food in the cities, then the system breaks down. So we need to think of new ways when climate change comes of how we're going to have food where we live, food where we're at. And that takes innovative approaches to reach that point. Thank you very much.